This deep dive, this one's going to be tough, guys.
Yeah.
We're tackling yesterday's school shooting at Abundant Life Christian School
Right.
in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
We're going to try to unpack what happened and try to make sense of it all.
Yeah.
But before we get started,
Sure.
I just want to acknowledge the pain and grief
Of course.
obviously felt by the victims and their families.
Yeah.
And the entire community.
The whole community.
It's just this kind of tragedy impacts us all.
It really does. And it's never easy to grapple with these kinds of events.
Right.
But trying to understand them is crucial.
Yeah.
Not for, sensationalism or anything like that,
Right.
but to learn.
To learn, yeah.
And hopefully find ways to prevent these tragedies in the future.
Exactly. And we've got a range of sources for this deep dive.
Oh.
We've got news articles, official statements, even early reports on social media.
Wow.
Our mission is to kind of sift through it all,
Yeah.
find the most crucial pieces, and figure out what it all means.
Okay.
We're going to be walking a fine line here,
Yeah.
trying to understand without speculating too much, because obviously the investigation is very much underway.
It's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
The information we have is still evolving.
Right. So let's start with what we know for sure.
Okay.
It was a little before 11 a.m. on December 16th when the shooting started.
Right.
It happened during a study hall
Okay.
with students from different grades in the same classroom.
Oh, wow.
The shooter,
Yeah.
a 15-year-old student named Natalie Rupnow,
Okay.
also known as Samantha,
Okay.
opened fire.
And tragically, one teacher and one student lost their lives.
Yeah.
6 others were injured, 2 critically rushed. Rupnow died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound before authorities arrived.
Now, here's a detail that really stopped me in my tracks.
Okay.
A second grader in that classroom had the incredible presence of mind to call 911 at 10:57,
Wow.
even before the shooting began.
Oh, my God.
I mean, how do you even process something like that at such a young age?
It's astonishing
Yeah,
that child's bravery is remarkable.
it is.
And it really, it speaks to the importance of empowering even young children to trust their instincts
Right.
and act when they sense danger.
Yeah.
That 911 call very likely made a difference in the emergency response time.
It makes you think about how we prepare children for these kinds of situations.
It is.
But turning to the shooter, Natalie Rupnow,
Okay.
what can you tell us about her?
Well, right now, what we know is that she was a student at the school. The weapon she used was a handgun.
Okay.
And authorities are still working to determine where she got it from.
Right.
A significant development is the discovery of a manifesto at her home.
A manifesto.
Yeah.
How do investigators typically approach
Right.
analyzing these kinds of documents?
They can be incredibly valuable in understanding the motivations and planning behind such acts.
Right.
Investigators will carefully examine the content, looking for clues about the shooter's mindset.
Okay.
Any potential targets mentioned, any indication of influence from others.
So it could potentially provide some insight into why this happened.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
While the manifesto's content hasn't been released publicly yet,
Right.
it could shed light on Rupnow's state of mind leading up to the shooting.
Okay.
There are also unconfirmed reports circulating online
Okay.
that someone claiming to be a friend of Rupnow had shared the manifesto.
Oh, wow.
But again, we need to be cautious about these early reports
Yeah, sure.
until they're verified by official sources.
This brings up the whole issue of online influence,
Absolutely.
something that's been a recurring theme in other similar cases.
We've seen how certain online spaces can unfortunately become breeding grounds for harmful ideologies
Yeah.
and potentially contribute to radicalization.
Right.
We need to understand how these online interactions might play a role,
Right.
especially in a case like this, where there's a possible connection to the manifesto being spread online.
It makes you wonder what kind of online activity investigators will be looking into.
Oh, sure.
And what about the school itself?
Right.
What kind of security measures were in place?
Reports indicate that Abundant Life had emergency plans and security cameras,
Okay.
but they didn't have metal detectors or resource officers on site. This tragic event is likely to fuel the ongoing debate about the effectiveness of different school security measures.
It's a really complex issue.
It is.
There are strong arguments on both sides.
Right.
Some believe stricter security is the answer,
Yeah.
while others worry about turning schools into fortresses
Right.
and the potential impact that has on students' well-being.
It's a delicate balance, and there's no easy solution.
Right.
This tragedy is sure to reignite that debate.
forcing us to re-examine our approaches to school safety
Forcing us, yeah,
and how we balance security with creating a healthy learning environment.
absolutely.
We'll need to see how that unfolds.
Yeah.
But for now, let's shift our focus to Natalie Rupnow's personal life. Do we have any information about that?
The sources we have don't offer many specifics about her personal life,
Okay.
but we can look to broader research on youth violence,
Uh-huh.
which points to some common risk factors.
Okay, like what?
Often there are feelings of isolation,
Okay.
social rejection, or a history of being bullied, exposure to violence either at home, in the community,
Right.
or even online can desensitize individuals and make them more prone to aggression.
Right.
And of course, mental health struggles, especially when left untreated, can play a significant role.
So it's rarely one single factor.
You're right.
It's usually a complex combination of things.
It's a web of interconnected influences.
And while we don't have specific details about Rupnow's life,
Right.
understanding these common risk factors can help us piece together a broader picture
Yes.
of what might have contributed to her actions.
Absolutely.
I want to circle back to that second grader for a moment.
Okay.
What can we learn from that child's actions?
It's incredible.
From their incredible awareness and bravery.
It really underscores the importance of teaching children about safety
Uh-huh.
and empowering them to speak up when they see something that seems wrong.
Right.
We often underestimate children's capacity to grasp dangerous situations,
Yeah.
but that second grader's actions show us just how capable they can be.
That's such a powerful takeaway, and I think it's a good place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground, but we still have much to unpack.
We do.
Yeah.
It really is. And it highlights the importance of giving them the tools
Right.
to report suspicious or concerning activity.
Yeah.
Their quick thinking might have made all the difference.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the midst of tragedy, hope and resilience can shine through.
Absolutely. And speaking of resilience, let's talk about the wider impact of this event.
Okay.
President Biden called the shooting shocking and unconscionable
Yeah.
and urged Congress to take action.
Those words sadly feel all too familiar every time something like this happens. We hear those calls for action,
Uh-huh.
but meaningful, lasting change,
Yeah.
it always seems just out of reach.
You're right. And that frustration is palpable across the nation.
Yeah.
This shooting, like so many before it,
Yeah.
has reignited those incredibly complex debates
Right.
around gun control, school safety, and mental health resources.
Yeah.
There are such deeply entrenched viewpoints on all sides.
And what about the immediate community?
Right.
How are they coping with this immense loss?
Well, one of our sources mentioned a candlelight vigil being planned for this evening, December 17th in Madison.
Okay.
It's a way for the community to come together, to mourn, to support one another,
Right.
and flags across Wisconsin are flying at half staff until December 22nd. It's a small gesture, but a symbolic one nonetheless.
It's a way for the entire state to acknowledge this collective grief,
Right.
this shared sense of loss.
Yeah.
But coming back to Natalie Rupnow and her possible motives,
Okay.
are there any common threads, any patterns you've observed in your work that might help us understand what led to this?
It's critical to remember that every case is unique,
Right.
and we can't make assumptions about Rupnow's specific motivations until the investigation is complete.
Yeah.
But research does point to some recurring factors associated with youth violence.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure.
What are some of those factors?
One of the most common factors is a sense of isolation,
Okay.
of social rejection, of being bullied. These experiences can be incredibly painful, especially for young people who are still developing their sense of self.
It makes you think about the pressures teenagers face today, especially with social media and the constant comparisons and judgments that happen online.
You've hit on another crucial point, exposure to violence.
Okay.
It's not just physical violence in the home or community.
Right.
It's also the violence they might be exposed to online,
Right.
through video games, even through the news itself.
Yeah.
Constant exposure can desensitize individuals to the horrors of violence,
Yeah.
making it seem more acceptable, even normal.
It's almost like a feedback loop.
Right.
Violence begets violence.
In a way, yes. And then, of course, there's the issue of mental health.
Right.
Untreated mental health issues, particularly depression, anxiety,
Yeah.
and feelings of hopelessness, can significantly increase the risk of violence.
That makes sense if someone is struggling internally and doesn't have the support or resources to cope.
Right.
Their pain can manifest in destructive ways.
For sure.
And we can't overlook the issue of access to firearms.
Right.
It seems like every time one of these tragedies occurs, that debate resurfaces.
Absolutely. The ease of access to firearms, especially in a country like the U.S., is undoubtedly a contributing factor.
Mm-hmm.
But it's rarely the sole cause.
Right.
It's a complex interplay of individual vulnerabilities, social influences, and environmental factors.
It's like a perfect storm, a confluence of events that culminates in this horrific act.
Right.
But amidst all this darkness, I keep coming back to that second grader. If a child that young can recognize danger and take action,
It's amazing.
surely we as adults can find a way to prevent these tragedies from happening.
That's a powerful thought. It really challenges us to step up, to do more,
Yeah.
to not just react to these events with sadness and outrage,
Mm-hmm.
but to channel those emotions into action.
It's about taking responsibility, isn't it?
It is.
Acknowledging that we all have a role to play in creating a safer world for our children.
Exactly. And that responsibility takes many forms.
Okay.
It's about staying informed about the issues,
Right.
about engaging in thoughtful conversations with people who hold different viewpoints, about advocating for change at all levels, from our local communities to our national government.
It sounds overwhelming,
It can be.
but it also feels empowering.
It is.
Like we're not powerless in the face of this.
We're not. There's so much we can do.
What can we do?
We can support organizations dedicated to mental health awareness and suicide prevention.
Okay.
We can advocate for stricter gun control measures or push for increased funding for school security and mental health resources.
Those are big picture solutions.
Yeah.
But what about on a more personal level?
Right.
What can we do in our own lives, in our own families and communities?
That's where it starts.
Okay.
We can be more mindful of our language and actions, promoting empathy and understanding rather than division and hate.
Okay.
We can learn to recognize the warning signs of someone who might be struggling
Right.
and offer a listening ear.
Yeah.
We could connect them with resources or simply be there for them without judgment.
It's about fostering a culture of support and connection.
Yes.
Making sure people don't feel isolated or alone.
Precisely. And that extends to the online world as well.
Okay.
We can challenge hateful rhetoric,
Right.
report harmful content, and create online communities that promote kindness and understanding.
It's a reminder that even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
They can.
A simple check-in with a friend, a listening ear, a willingness to have those tough conversations. These things can have a ripple effect.
Absolutely. And as we move forward, it's essential to remember the victims of this tragedy,
Right.
their families and the community forever marked by this event.
Yeah.
Their pain should fuel our commitment to create a world where such violence is no longer tolerated, a world where every child feels safe and valued.
A world worth fighting for, no doubt. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final question to ponder.
Okay.
Considering what we've learned today, what steps do you think we can take as a society to prevent future tragedies like this?
It's a powerful question and one that deserves our attention and action.
We've explored the timeline, the victims, the shooter,
Right.
delved into potential motives, and grappled with the wider issues at play.
Yeah.
But amidst all that, I keep thinking about something you said earlier,
Okay.
that even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're not powerless,
Right.
that we can all contribute to creating a safer and more compassionate world.
You're absolutely right. It's so easy to feel overwhelmed by the enormity of this problem,
Right.
to get caught up in the debates and the political rhetoric.
Yeah.
But real change starts at the individual level.
Okay.
It starts with each of us choosing kindness, choosing empathy, choosing to connect with others in a meaningful way.
It's about breaking down those barriers that isolate us.
It is.
Those walls of judgment and fear that prevent us from truly seeing and hearing one another.
Exactly. It's about building bridges instead of walls.
Right.
It's about fostering a sense of community where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued.
And that's not just a feel-good sentiment.
No, it's not.
There's real power in those connections.
Absolutely.
It's about creating a safety net